Fawzia Koofi, today NATO ministers called for more contribution on civil issues in Afghanistan. And seen from your point of view as a leading and influent Afghan MP, what do you expect this decision actually to change in Afghanistan?
Well, I'm glad for the first time the Afghan nation and the international community, especially the NATO, has found a common language. We also in Afghanistan have been asking for more attention to the civilian life.
And not only soldiers.
And not only security, not only just military operation, but also kind of development efforts, you know, human rights, women issues, the government, rule of law, development projects. That's what people of Afghanistan have been asking. Also on military aspect, what we expect also in the parliament and the nation of Afghanistan to do more investment on the building up Afghan security forces, national army, national police, in terms of training, in terms of capacity, because they will be there, and that's a self-sufficient, that's a sustainable project. And I'm glad that today the international community also have the same common language with the Afghan nation. But that doesn't mean that the mission in Afghanistan is finished. We still have a long...
It's a good decision taken today.
It's a good decision. We still have a long way ahead of us. It's a global war. It's not an Afghan war. It doesn't mean that we are working on an exit strategy. I hope that this message today is not an exit strategy message. I hope that it's like beginning of a new phase of involvement in Afghanistan.
Back in 2006, I did an interview with you regarding the situation in Afghanistan back then, and you were quite optimistic when we talked in 2006. Let's have a clip from that interview here.
But we Afghans believe that this is actually a start for the international community interventions in Afghanistan, because now that you have the basis for democracy, you have the parliament, you have the elected member of cabinet, you have the Supreme Court, the political structure of the government is now somehow established. So this is basically a start for your development efforts.
But still, almost 4 years later, there's still a lot of problems in Afghanistan. What went wrong since then?
Oh, I still believe that the nation, the Afghan nation, deserves democracy. I still believe that there is a possibility of winning in Afghanistan. We need to listen to the people of Afghanistan. We need to listen to Afghan nation. You know,
but still, it seems to be more difficult to build a sustainable democracy than you thought in 2006. Isn't that correct?
It's very difficult now. It's getting more difficult. It's because that we don't have the right people in the right positions. You cannot have democracy with people who don't believe in democracy. There are certain elements within the executive branch who misuse actually democracy. You know, last presidential election, there was a lot of claims of this is perhaps one of the famous elections in the world because of rigging and irregularities happened during the election. The Afghan nation spoke out, despite the security challenges, despite the problem of, you know, over this election commission, etc., etc. The nation went to the polling station. So that indicates that Afghan nation deserve democracy. Democracy is not just a Western concept for Afghan people. We have in our history democracy, and especially the silent majority of the nation, which is the nation itself, deserve democracy. But there are wrong people in the wrong positions. I think there are certain elements within the government of Afghanistan who actually misuse this concept, and they don't believe in what they do. We need to listen to the nation, the parliament, I think itself. The media is growing. That's a positive step. But of course there are corruption. There is more of a negative environment. There is need to be more development environment, development opportunities for people, like employment. The rule of women shouldn't be forgotten. Democracy. These are the principles that we need to stand. The government of Afghanistan needs to stand for it. But unfortunately, I think lately the government of Afghanistan kind of lost its vision for what it wants to do with the nation. They have started, you know, issue of negotiations and talks with Taliban. We all, I think nobody in the world disagree with the principle of talk, but with what cost? That's a question that the government of Afghanistan needs to...
So you don't think that a dialogue with Taliban would be for any use, or...?
You know, I don't disagree with the talks, with the dialogues. We are living in 21st century. We need to go and talk, and we need to open the principle of the gate for talks and negotiations. But, you know, Taliban basically disagree with three main principles. The first is the issue of women's rights, democracy, human rights principles. You know, if there is no democracy, there is no Fawzia Koofi today sitting with you for this interview. They disagree with the constitution. They disagree with the international community presence in Afghanistan. I'm not sure the government of Afghanistan, especially the president, which of these three values he is ready to sacrifice to bring Taliban. And in addition to this, Taliban has been very, very clear on what they want. I mean, it's the government of Afghanistan who needs to create a vision still for what they want.
And now you mentioned it, you yourself are opposed to Taliban. That's clear when we're listening to you in this interview. And you're fighting for women's rights. And still there are backlashes in women's rights. For example, a very controversial family law last summer. Why do we still see all these backlashes?
We need a long time. I mean, it's a process. Democracy is not just a word. It's a process. We need to achieve that. Yes, the government of Afghanistan need to have more commitment when it comes to the issue of women's rights, because you are not there in Afghanistan only to fight terrorism. You are there also to help Afghan people reach their objective and the vision they request for and they ask for, which is democracy, which is human rights, which is, you know, the promotion of media, which is equal accessibility, which is equal rights. These are the simple principles that we stand all over the world, and Afghan nation deserve. We cannot be just discriminated with all these values, but it's lack of political commitment from the government side. I think, you know, lately you mentioned of this law. This was actually signed by President Karzai, unlike many laws that take a long time to be signed. But we stood for it. For the first time, women of Afghanistan, and I was one of them, we demonstrated in the streets. We went to demonstrate in the streets asking for our rights. So I think this is also a positive sign that we go to the street, we ask for our rights. These are the basic things that we need to do. But I think we take the concrete steps for the future.
And mentioning President Karzai, we have a picture of him on the screen right now. How serious do you consider him to be on democracy, on fighting corruption and things he has been criticized for not fighting?
I think he has a kind of a change, a shift of his vision from what he was in 2004 and 2005 in terms of democracy and human rights. He has many other priorities. For instance, now for him, priority on his desk is the issue of talks with Taliban. And he has all this explanation and definition of good and bad Taliban and moderate and non-moderate Taliban. And he wants to invest in the London conference. He asked for money to pay off the Taliban. And, you know, this is in a situation that we have hundreds of thousands of unemployed youth, even in Kabul, which are not with Taliban. If we really want to build this society through the young generation, which are educated, and that's the hope for future. Sometimes
then you should change the focus simply. You should have more focus on that. On
I think we need to. I think we need to really focus on the good governance. I don't believe the Taliban are getting stronger. I think the government of Afghanistan need to get stronger, which is getting weaker. We need to be able to at least deliver in the places which is under the control of the Afghan government. In South, there is insecurity, which is very obvious for 25% of the country. There is insecurity and insurgency. But 75% the rest of the country, there is security, there is peace. People welcome the international community assistance. Why can't we deliver there? I mean, instead of paying off to our enemies, which we fight with, why don't we invest this money in the youth, in employment opportunity, in the human rights promotion, in establishing rule of law? Because not necessarily many of these Taliban are ideological Taliban. There are some people who join them that are not happy with a strong government. So we can provide a good governance and they will automatically come and join the process of democracy.
So hopefully the NATO decision today will support all this. Fawzia Koofi, thank you very much for joining us here tonight. Og så kan jeg lige føje til, at Fawzia Koofi er i Danmark ikke på nogen form for officiel besøg, men simpelthen for at besøge